You're listening to the Business Brain Food Podcast. This is episode 120.
Welcome to the podcast that gives you direct access to the world's leading business building experts. Head to MaxMyProfit.com.au to catch up on past episodes, download your free business growth tools, and access show notes for every single episode. Now here's your host, Ben Futrell.
Well, g'day and welcome back to another episode of Business Brain Food. This, my friend, is the podcast that's 100% devoted to taking you and your business to the next level. And the good news is, doesn't matter whether you're brand new to this business thing, so maybe you're just scratching that entrepreneurial itch, or maybe you're like myself and you've been in this business arena for some time and you've got the scars and the wounds to prove it. No matter what, there's always something new we can do to take our business to the next level, and today is absolutely no different. Now, before I do bring today's guest onto the show, I want to say thank you once again. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to the Business Brain Food Podcast. If you've been listening for a long time and you've this is your 120th show, I applaud your I guess consistency in making sure you tune in each week and listening in. I really do appreciate it, and I'm glad to have you back on as a listener for this episode. All right, now you may have noticed that we have changed a couple of the web links in the intro there, and I've talked about MaxMyProfit.com.au. That is our brand new website and brand new branding. MaxMyProfit.com.au. Head across there and you'll be able to see what's going on. The new site should be up live by the time this episode goes live. If not, you can shoot me a message and say, Ben, you were wrong. It wasn't up live. The other thing that we're doing is we're separating the Business Brain Food Podcast into its own website. It's got super popular. We're getting thousands and thousands of downloads, and we've decided to give it its own identity rather than sitting on the back of another website. So you'll be able to go to businessbrainfood.com.au. And that could be live now. If not, it'll be live very, very shortly. And we'll have our own dedicated website just for this podcast. And that's a big thanks to you. You know, we've got the popularity that we've got because you keep tuning in every week and listening. And, podcasting is one of those things that takes a little bit of time to get traction. For the first probably 6 to 8 months, there wasn't many downloads. And then all of a sudden it took off. We're now been in this 2.5 years, and the show's quite popular. And we get a lot of downloads and a lot of people listening to it and getting value, good feedback, all of those things. And I really do want to say once again, thanks for tuning in, because it is you that makes it possible for us to continue to bring this content to you on a weekly basis and make it all worthwhile. So thank you for that. Now, on that note, if you are enjoying the show, a couple of things that you could do for me. First of all, something that'll be great for you is to join the Business Brain Food group on Facebook. So if you go to facebook.com/groups Business Brain Food, join the group, and there's a bunch of us in there having a conversation, all things business. You can ask any question you like. You can access me in there. You can ask a question that maybe I could even play on the show. So jump into Business Brain Food on the Facebook application and find the group or the Facebook page and join in the conversation. We'd love to see you there. Second thing, if you're enjoying the podcast, if you could do this for me, it'd be fantastic. Head across to the iTunes store or into the Stitcher app or wherever it is you listen to this podcast and leave an honest review or rating. Read them all, and it really does help us. It helps us when people are looking for a show to listen into. They come across the feedback. They get a good feel for whether or not it's worth their time to invest in having a listen. And by you leaving your feedback, it gives people that opportunity to be able to make that decision. So if you could do that for me, I will greatly appreciate it. And as a special thank you back to you, I'll record another dozen episodes at least. There you go. There's our deal. That's the deal. Now, talking about deals, I actually have a fellow called Gregory Diehl coming on the show today. And, we got Gregory on because one of the things that I find a lot of business owners are struggling with is how to position themselves in the marketplace. It's getting more difficult, right? If you look at marketing these days, and I've been in marketing all my life. I love marketing. If you look, though, at marketing today, it is in some ways it's a lot easier, and in some ways it's a lot harder, and I'll tell you why. I think marketing is easier because there's so many channels now. It's easy to test stuff. Back in the old days, you couldn't test that easily. When I had my transport company 20 years ago, we would pay, I'd see people, not just me, but businesses all over the place, paying $20,000, $25,000 for a Yellow Pages advertisement for one of those, not even a quarter page. It was sort of like a sixth of a page. And you'd have to write the copy for that ad with the offer. probably 4, 5, 6 months before the Yellow Pages came out. And then you were stuck with that ad for the entire year, right? Once the Yellow Pages was published, you were stuck with it. Now, that was just, an outcome of the time. We didn't have websites. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Google AdWords. None of that existed, right? Facebook certainly didn't exist. So we had to spend... we had to sort of, I guess, be a futurist and think about what will our audience going to respond to for a whole year, starting in 6 months. And then if the ad didn't work, if our ad that we had written sucked, and let's face it, most of them did, unfortunately with Yellow Pages advertising, any advertising, most of us just copied our competitors' advertising. We're going to talk about that today with Gregory Diehl. But we copied our competitors' advertising, we whacked that in there, and then we wondered why we didn't get a return on investment. And the reality was that it wasn't any good. But the worst thing about it was that we couldn't change it. So if we had launched it, realised it wasn't working, we were just stuck with it. We had to suck it up, we had to get on with it, and just try and change our ad for next year. And the good thing about today, why I think marketing is easier today, is you can actually test things on a very much what I call a micro scale. So you can spend $500 on a campaign in Facebook and see what reactions you get. You could run a survey in Facebook if you're not sure, So if you wanted to find out what the top 2 issues your customers or your prospective customers were facing, you could actually market a Facebook survey for $500 or $1,000 and get people answering a survey. I've seen them on YouTube as well. You can do it on YouTube, so before a video starts. And I know what you're saying, but Ben, I never click on those. I never watch those, but people do, right? 90-something percent, I think 98% of Google's revenue comes from people clicking on ads. So we know that people click on the ads. It may not be you, but people do. So you need to trust me on this one. And that's what I love about marketing today, is it's so easy to trial different things. The other things is there's opportunity for you to be able to get exposure for nothing. And that's called social media. It's called social networking. The opportunity to get exposure for nothing is greater than it ever was. In the old days, you had to do things like Wizard Home Loans did when Mark Burris did the whole guerrilla marketing thing. He had people at the cricket in the audience with Wizard Home Loan signs behind the wickets or wherever the great shots were happening. These days, you don't need to do that. You can do that online now. There's Facebook pages. There's organisations that will share your posts. As long as you make them shareable and you make them noteworthy and educational and helpful, you can get this free exposure. Things like podcasts. My podcast guests, they don't charge me to be on the show, and I don't charge them to be on the show. We do it as a mutual beneficial thing because I get great content. I get great guests coming onto the show that help you take your business to the next level, but they also get exposure, right? And all they got to do is invest their time. So the opportunity is great. I mean, even you might ask yourself, could I be a guest on podcasts? Have I got a story to tell? Well, if the answer is yes, why not do it? And during this interview, you're going to hear Gregory talk about self-publishing. It's getting easier, Maybe that's something you could do as well. I think marketing is simpler than it's ever going to be. Now, why do I think it's also more difficult than it's ever been? Because there are so many choices. And there's a lot of noise, right? A lot of people telling you that you should do this or you should do that. What I say to you is you should get really good at marketing one part of your business and then use that as your lessons to market others. I see people just doing this big blanket approach instead of going, righto, what is a problem that we solve for people? For me, for example, I know that people want to be more organised. They want to have a plan in their business, but business planning is a very difficult thing. So the number one thing we use is a business planning template. And I spend thousands of dollars marketing my template on all the different platforms. Why? Because it works, right? People download the template, they get to know who we are, we start a conversation with them, and before we know it, they're becoming clients. So, think about what problem can you solve and just get really good at marketing the solution to that problem. And hopefully, then you'll be able to then duplicate that onto other mediums. And that's why I think marketing is difficult right now, is because there's so many, even social media, like where do you start? There's a new one all the time. You look at... And then each platform changes and morphs, don't they? I mean, I noticed, with Instagram, now Instagram last year released the stories video, so to take on Periscope, which was Twitter's video app. And then you have, you look at this online stuff, it's just amazing. Video in Facebook now, you have video on Twitter, you have YouTube, it's just insane. So I know it's very difficult as a business owner to know where to start. So today's podcast is paramount to your success, and it's about understanding about your identity. And one of the things that Gregory talks about is getting uncomfortable. And I guess this is out of people's comfort zone. And he's got a podcast, which is, I think it's called Uncomfortable Conversations with Gregory in iTunes or Stitcher. Go and listen to it. And it's very insightful. It's a great podcast. I listened to a couple of episodes and he's got me hooked, so I'm a subscriber now. But I think that today is about getting you a little bit uncomfortable to think about, why aren't you different from your competitors? Why don't you market yourself different to your competitors? And, Gregory has traveled all over the world, 45 countries. In fact, the interview he was with me, he was in Peru. That's why we're having a little bit of internet problems because the weather there was quite bad. He's worked in education, personal development, business development. He's helped passionate people from all walks figure out who they really are underneath all the noise, and as a result can then deliver great value to the world in an authentic win-win manner. And that's all about that brand identity breakthrough. Now, his first book is called that, Brand Identity Breakthrough. It's a smash hit, an Amazon bestseller. It shows entrepreneurs how to communicate the unique value of their products and services to a highly specific audience, solidifying a powerful brand identity in the process. So I think you're going to really enjoy this. If you've ever struggled on how to create your unique selling proposition or unique value proposition, and you've ever struggled to market it, today is definitely going to be a podcast that will help you take your business to the next level. So without any further delay, let's get Gregory Diehl onto the podcast. As we do that, I do apologise for the Skype issues that we were having. We did our best to navigate our way through them. And most of the information is there. There was a couple of times where it might be a bit hard to listen to. Please, if you do get to a patch where it's a bit rough to listen to, trust me, it does get better again. So hang in there and listen away.
Business Brain Food.
So joining me today all the way from Peru is Gregory. Welcome to the Business Brain Food podcast, my friend.
Hi, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. Now, before we do kick off with having a chat about getting uncomfortable and finding yourself and talking a bit about how people, can explore their brand and build their business, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask every single guest on the show, and that is for you to share something quirky about yourself.
It's time for something quirky. And now, something quirky.
Something quirky about me is I really like yelling at people and making them uncomfortable, which you might think is counterproductive as a consultant and someone who works really personally with people, because most people don't like being yelled at. But I find it's actually a very integral part of my process, both as a personal coach and as a business coach, of getting down to the fundamental essence of what makes someone's brand the way it is, why they're taking the actions they are in business, and making fundamental changes to those things. You got to get past the outer layers. So I'm kind of an off-putting person to some people, but some people just can't get enough of it.
That's awesome. Hopefully you won't yell at me today.
Only if you want me to.
It's a bit like Gordon Ramsay, isn't it? They say it's an unattractive trait, but I think it's also a very attractive trait. People love Gordon Ramsay, and he yells and he swears and he puts people down, but people just can't get enough of him.
Sure, or Simon Cowell from the American Idol series, the really angry, just mean judge of the singers who go on the show.
And is that how you see yourself? You're like the mean, honest judge of brand identity.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying everyone should do it, but there is a place in the world for someone who's very good at that extremely direct, just nothing held back, very honest, brutal method. And for the right person in the right place, it's exactly what they need.
Great stuff. Now, you've been involved in helping people, I guess, with their brand over time, and our audience on this show is small to medium businesses across the world. Tell us a bit about how you got involved in what you do now.
Well, I've been traveling the world for the last decade, basically since I finished high school. This is now my 50th country or so that I've been to. I'm currently in Peru. And in the process of all these travels, I learned that people have a lot of different ways of telling the story of their life and their culture and just interpreting reality all around us. And then specifically, we all do that through businesses we create. A business is a particular kind of story that you're telling to the world that's supposed to appeal to very specific kinds of people and make them take very specific kinds of action. I realized everything was just a big narrative we were all telling. We're all playing characters in the narrative of life, and the entrepreneur becomes one of the storytellers in this whole big story that's going on. And I realized that a lot of them, even if what they produced, the products or the services, were very valuable, very unique, very life-changing, very important, they weren't necessarily very good at telling the story behind those things, explaining why they were unique or important or why very specific kinds of people should pay attention to them. So I stepped in to fill that role for them.
Great stuff. Now, you've written a book called Find Your Brand Identity Breakthrough. What do you consider a breakthrough? Is it something that is a marketing piece de resistance, or what is a breakthrough in brand identity?
Well, A brand identity breakthrough to me is when you take all the disparate little parts that you know about your business perhaps, or that your customers might know, but they're not really connected in any meaningful way. So, if you talked to your customers, the ones who absolutely love you, and you asked them repeatedly, why is it you keep buying from me? How do you feel when you interact with me? What emotions does my company bring up for you? Why have you been loyal to me for so long? Or the opposite, people who maybe could have been your customers but chose not to be. If you ask them, why didn't you buy from me? What made you change your mind? What objections did you have that I didn't answer? What was still taking up space in your mind that made you not want to follow through with working with me? You'll start to notice little patterns that pop up over and over and over again. And if you can act upon the positive things, emphasize them, weave them together in some kind of relationship, some kind of foundational story behind your business, and then negate the negative things or just avoid those kinds of people entirely, you have an identity that you can display to people. We are the business that does this in this way for these kinds of people. And that actually means something because it's built on real things, not just what you think people want to hear about you.
Yeah. And why do you feel that's important for businesses to be able to communicate?
Well, because most of them just aren't very good at it. Again, no matter what they're good at, they could be building bicycle parts or something, and they could build the best bicycle parts in the world and have the most knowledge and the most interesting personal history with bicycle parts. But if they're not explaining that to the people who might buy from them, either explicitly, like in a conversation we're having right now, or more implicitly, like the colors and the taglines and all the little things that people typically associate with a brand, you might as well not exist. If you're not communicating it to people, it doesn't matter that it's there. You are indecipherable, indistinguishable from everyone else in your niche.
And so what sort of results have you seen for businesses that have spent the time to really identify their story and learn how to communicate it better to their audience?
Well, the ultimate goal, I think, for anyone is to have no competition, to be doing something that is functionally completely different than what everyone you previously thought of in your niche was doing. You want customers to get to a point where, I don't know, maybe you've got a favorite brand of coffee or something, or a favorite brand of really rich dark chocolate that you eat every night after dinner, and you've tried hundreds of other varieties, and this one's your favorite, and it just hits the spot in that perfect way in your life. And if suddenly the company went out of business, or they were out of stock, or the store was closed and you couldn't get it, you just wouldn't buy chocolate. Because it's not about just having chocolate or just having coffee or just having something that fulfills that categorical need. It's about having that very specific thing that holds a very special place in your life. And that sounds like it's easy to understand in a thing like chocolate or coffee that people get really, really passionate about. But the same thing can more or less be achieved in whatever your niche is if you just learn to be different in a very specific kind of way. You have no competition then.
Yeah. Have you got some examples of some businesses that you've worked with to make this unique value proposition or unique selling proposition?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's quite different for every business. That's why it's hard to think of one thing that applies to everyone. But like if we took someone like a service provider, for example, I used to work with this woman, very interesting woman. She was in her 60s when I met her, and she'd been practicing a form of yoga and motion therapy literally her entire life. So she was already at the age many people would be retiring, and she was an expert because of how long she spent practicing this. There was no question of whether or not she knew what she was doing. It's just that for the 40 years or so that she'd been practicing this, she had always described it in the same way, which was very generic. I do motion therapy. I do a form of yoga and Pilates that helps people with flexibility. Like, oh, okay, that's nice. That's interesting. But so what? Right? What difference does that make? There are plenty of people who do yoga and Pilates and motion therapy. And it turns out that wasn't actually what she was doing. She just didn't know how to explain it. She actually had innovated a very unique way of helping athletes recover their range of flexibility after they'd been injured, or world-class gymnasts who couldn't perform the way that they used to, people who were now in their 40s, 50s, 60s, who felt like they could not do the things physically that they used to be able to do, and using her own unique technique that combined elements of things like yoga and Pilates and other forms of motion therapy, she would actually get measurable results in restoring their flexibility for those specific applications. And even though she knew that's what she did, she never realized why it was important to explain it in those very specific, explicit terms to people.
Yeah, okay. And by changing the way that she positioned herself, did that, I mean, obviously she was doing those things. She didn't have to change what she was doing. She just changed the way she positioned what she was doing. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Her therapy didn't change whatsoever. Just all the materials surrounding it, her website, the brochure, her elevator pitch. We spent hours going over just when you meet someone new and they ask what you do, don't say I'm a yoga teacher. Say these, 3 or 4 sentences, because even if that person isn't a potential candidate to work with you, because not everyone, very few people are going to fit her target market, maybe they know someone who is, or at least then that when they talk about you, they'll accurately, represent you to other people. And that, the effects of that are compounding, right? Because then you can finally start to get some traction in the marketplace when people know what it is they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's I guess, and that's what marketing is all about, isn't it? Is being able to educate the marketplace as to what you actually do, or what the benefit of what you do is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. So, what are some of the mistakes that you see business owners making? I mean, you've been working with business owners now, helping them to really thrash this out. What are some of the mistakes you're finding that business owners are making when it comes to positioning themselves?
I think most business owners are cowards, to put it bluntly. I think they like to stay in really generic terms that they picked up from some internet marketing forum about offering maximum value at the lowest price, or customer satisfaction, or there's, especially in the realm of internet entrepreneurs, because I know this because I would technically fit into what you would call a digital nomad, somebody who works from a computer and travels around the world. But it seems like everybody who's in this category of entrepreneurs has even like a specific lexicon they use to talk about how they work, and they're all just parroting each other. Nobody has any initiative, any balls to go out there and come up with their own language, their own way of describing what they do, and their own unique value attributes to focus on. Everyone is focusing on the same generic things that they copied from someone else, which of course cannot be unique if you copied it from someone else. So maybe take something that is working for someone else, but change something about it. It doesn't have to be completely different, but just different enough that it is, signature to you. And for someone like me, a lot of that is my personality, right? There are very few people who are going to talk about this in the same way I'm talking about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Why do you think they're cowards? Why do you think that is? Because, I mean, that is a big problem, isn't it? People are not game to go outside of that comfort zone and create something unique. But there must be a reason for that. Have you done any research on that to understand why people's behavior keeps them in that comfort zone and being a coward?
Well, fundamentally, I don't see how it's different than really any other part of life. If you're afraid to go talk to that pretty girl at the bar or something, why is that? Fear of failure, fear of rejection. What if she says no? Or what if I don't know what to say once she starts talking to me? It's just fear of the unknown and fear of rejection. And when money's on the line, that fear is compounded even more. Well, what if nobody likes my unique selling proposition? What if nobody buys the product I produce? Then I won't have money to pay the rent or feed my kids or whatever. So stuff like that can be mitigated by proper financial planning, having enough of a runway and minimizing your costs so that you don't have to worry that one failure could ruin you. But at the same time, those risky things that could be rejected and that people might not like also tend to have the highest potential to find that group of people that really, really like them and could pay a lot of money for them. There's no risk, no reward. You got to specialize. You got to take those big risks if you're going to be noteworthy whatsoever.
Yeah. Why do you think a lot of people are copying other people? Is it because of a lack of education, or do they think that just by copying somebody else's terminology, words, or methodology is going to make them successful like they are? Or why do you think that's happening?
I think that a lot of them are armchair entrepreneurs. They read books about entrepreneurship. They watch videos from guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, who talks about how cool and how great and exciting it is to be an entrepreneur. And they understand a lot of the philosophy, but they don't have any in-the-field experience because they are either coming fresh out of college or they worked just a regular corporate job for 10 years. And now they're mentally, they're thinking about how to make that switch to an entrepreneurial lifestyle, but they haven't physically taken the plunge. And I think one advantage someone like me has is that I have nothing but in-the-field experience. Now, I've read great books too, of course, and I've watched videos and listened to lectures and learned from people who were the masters at their craft. But most importantly, I am full of a decade now of trial and error, of seeing what worked and what didn't, of how people responded to me when I would talk in certain ways or when I would sell other people's products, what would incite curiosity and what would be ignored. And I think most entrepreneurs are missing just that die-hard, complemented by the book learning, but it cannot be just theoretical knowledge.
Yeah, okay. So it's got to be learnt. Some of it's going to be learnt through experience, then, yeah.
I would say the majority of it should be. I would say 80% oriented.
Yeah, okay, great stuff. Now, if somebody's sitting there thinking, well, my business is same as everybody else's, and I've just done that, my brand, well, maybe they don't have a brand identity, and by listening to this, they're starting to realise that. What are some of the steps, or where do they start in developing their brand identity? How do they go about creating that and then marketing it effectively?
Well, in my book, Brand Identity Breakthrough, I talk about 3 questions I ask everyone as soon as I begin working with them. It doesn't matter who they are, where they're coming from. Thing for me. First, who are you? Pretty straightforward, right? You tell me your backstory, you tell me your name, you tell me, general information about you to help me identify you. I say, what do you do? So then if we're talking in a business context, you tell me what your company produces or what kind of make. Why should I care? And the moment I ask that question, it reframes everything else they said. And then if they're like 99% of people, they answered the first 2 questions thinking about themselves. Answering for reasons, giving the information that they wanted to give me because they thought that it was important. And as soon as I ask, well, okay, all that stuff you just gave me, how does that apply to me? Why should I be interested in that? What's in it for me, in another way speaking?
Yeah, we're having a little bit of Skype.
They can be told to reverse. Sorry, what?
Yeah, we're having a little bit of Skype issues, just to break you up, sounding a little bit like Darth Vader, but that's okay. You're still not yelling, which is good. I'll just repeat those 3 questions. I think it's really important that the listeners do actually get to hear that. I break up a little bit. So you asked the 3 questions: who are you, what do you do, and why should I care? And you're saying that when you ask that third question, why should I care, that's when people really start to think more about their customer more so than themselves.
Right, and it's a little bit rude. What they do is important to other people. But if you're an entrepreneur or a salesman or a marketer, you have to always be thinking that way. How is my audience perceiving me?
Yeah, very important. And do you have like a worksheet then that they work through to write down maybe 10 things, or is it how do they come up with this identity? Because I found that working with business owners ourselves, one of the things people struggle with is really understanding or being able to, I guess, put it into words, how it is that they differ from their competition and what it is they do differently. So do you have a way of people being able to do that and making it a bit easier?
Even in the book, I include 50 questions at the end that people can ask themselves to start to piece together, who they are and why it matters. But if we're explaining, this is the thing that I do, this is the service that I perform or the product that I produce, here's the action that it does, right? Here's the verb that matches the noun. And here's what it does for you. Here's why you should care about why, right? Now that I've given you that information, here's what I want you to do with it. Here's what I want the next words out of your mouth to be, right? Tell me more about you. How does this apply to your life? Give me your phone number. Ask me a question about this, whatever the content acknowledges. And I've had to do this with things I hardly knew anything about them because I had just taken up the sales position with the company, or I just barely read a brochure about it. So I had to then take what little information I had and figure out how to work it into the worldview of the person I was talking about. So certainly, if I can do this.
Yeah, it looks like we've lost our Skype connection. All right, so where we left off there was we were talking about how if somebody wants to put together their unique selling proposition, it's easy to say, hey, come up with a value proposition, tell us why you're different, why should I care? But what's your process then for helping people to be able to put that into words and market it?
To have a unique selling proposition, I try to combine a lot of things that seem really mundane on their own. Like, what is the problem that you solve with your business? That's obvious, right? Like, everyone should already be in that state of mind that your business exists to solve a problem. Specifically, though, what is the problem that it solves? Now, no matter what that is, it's quite likely you're not going to be the only product or service on the market that solves that specific problem, unless you've just invented the cure for cancer or something and there's literally no competition. But in all likelihood, whatever it is you do, there's got to be some other alternative that does the same thing. So then we'll move on to something a little more complicated, like the specific way that it solves that problem, because maybe there's something favorable about the way that your product works that certain kinds of people might prefer over other ways. Like I can get to work riding a skateboard or in a car or in a helicopter, right? Like all 3 of those will take me to the same place. The destination is the same. The outcome is the same. I'm getting to work. Yet each of them will have a very different experience along the way, right? And a helicopter might be too expensive, or I might be afraid of flying or something. And a skateboard might be more thrilling and more fun, depending on the kind of person I am, but it's less safe, right? So that's a silly example, but you could see how that might apply to any other industry that a person's in. There's always more than one way to get something done. So it has to do not just with where you're going, but how you're getting there, right? Then think about the kind of specific kind of person you're doing it for, right? A skateboard is going to be marketed probably more to teenagers, whereas a helicopter would be marketed to a really, really rich person living in Dubai or something, where they actually have an Uber for helicopters in Dubai. I didn't know this until I went there. It's insanely expensive, but if you're the kind of person with the funds, you can go to certain places in Dubai and just order a helicopter to come pick you up. So this isn't even a hyperbolic example. This is real.
Wow.
Real people do this in the real world.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Who knew? And so that's your target market, right? That's your target audience. And obviously most marketers know that you need to know who that person is. But then the part that I think is most overlooked would be your specific personality. Your personality might be the only reason somebody chooses to do business with you if the other competition is functionally identical. And it's a function of trust, really. Trust is part of your personality, not just in the sense that you are competent enough to get something done. Like, I believe the guy I'm hiring to work on my teeth has gone to dental school and knows how to do a root canal or whatever I'm hiring him for. I trust he'll get it done, but more just in the emotions that a person makes you feel when they're there with you. They trust that you will treat them fairly. They trust that you will give them all the facts and the information, and just they like the fact that their money is going to you because they identify with you in a certain way. So as soon as you know your target market, you also need to know yourself, because you are the actor, or in the case of your business's brand, a brand for a small business or a large business is like a person. It's a projection of an actual human personality. So if you're trying to build a specific brand for your company, that needs to be the personality that is most suited to the kind of people you're trying to sell to, that you're trying to work with. And if you don't know any of the answers to any of these questions, you're really screwed.
Yeah, which is important to think about is that if you want to be different, you do need to be able to answer these questions. And now, are you thinking that people would use this in like put it into a sentence, or would it be a vision mission statement? Would it be something that they just internalize? How do they use it in their marketing?
Oh, all of the above. This should be a brand identity. All the things we're used to thinking of when we think of branding, targeting, and mission and vision statements, and the color scheme for my logo. All of these things should be derivatives of first understanding the answers to these kinds of questions. And they're not the only questions I ask. These are just sort of the main pillars in my mind of what makes up a brand. I've got 50 more in the book that I use. Right.
Yeah.
And once you really understand them and have internalized them, not just with yourself, but with every other core member of your team. I mean, again, depending on the size of business we're talking about, how big of an executive presence there is, everybody needs to be on the same page, not just the guy who does the sales and marketing, right? This is a psychological identity you are imparting to the people who make up your company, right? And then when everyone has completely agreed on that, that's when you start to say, okay, now that this is the kind of people we are, this is the kind of personality we represent, this is the function we perform in the world, what colors should be in our logo? What's appropriate for that? For a person who's really passionate, right? You'd probably use something like red or yellow, right? And if you were calm, cool, and collected and trustworthy, it might be more blues and greens, right? And of course, there are many other factors that would go into determining that. So don't just use that one question to determine that. But the point is that those things come after. And most people do it completely backwards, because they start by looking at the most visible, the most obvious things. And they say, well, okay, this company used blue in their logo, so it must be a good color to use, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot, unfortunately, in business. A lot of people they're not sure, right? They don't, and this is the thing is, I think part of the challenge is people just don't know what they don't know. And it's about getting an education to go, okay, well, how important is it to have a brand identity and then to be able to portray that in everything that we do? And that's really the question that you're answering with your book, isn't it? With the brand identity breakthrough, is saying it is important, and here's exactly how you do it.
Yeah, and again, if you read the book, you'll notice it's a lot like having a conversation with me. It's pretty confrontational. It's not offensive or anything, but it is designed to be pretty heavy duty and really make you think about these things in ways that you probably never have before. And that's entirely the point. It's not just about here's out of a catchy tagline. It's how to think differently about the reason why you're in business and then show that to people.
Yeah. And what are some of the outcomes you've seen of people actually going through this process? Because there'll be some people listening going, I just can't be bothered. I'm doing okay. I may be bland and like everybody else, but at least I'm making do. What's the benefit? Why should somebody go and actually spend the time and invest the energy to create this brand and market it more effectively?
Well, it's two things. One is the obvious that if you communicate more effectively, if you display value better, you should, all other things being equal, have more revenue, right? Because more people should be willing to pay more money for your products and services, right? That logically follows. As long as you're still doing everything else right, communicating more effectively should lead to an increase in revenue. And who doesn't want more money? Sure. But then the second thing, and this is far more important to someone like me, is you will be more fulfilled with your business personally, emotionally, philosophically, spiritually even, because you will feel like you are doing something you truly believe in. You are being authentic with the world and the business you do. It won't just be something you're doing because it brings you in income. It will be expressing yourself in a more authentic manner to people. And to me, that is far more valuable than just making more money.
Yeah, and that's a great lesson right there. A great takeaway is that it's not all about the money, although the money is important, right? It's up there somewhere with oxygen. We need it, but it's not everything.
Right. Absolutely. To me, this is about fulfillment on all levels.
Great.
If you can make money while being fulfilled, great.
Yeah, I mean, that's an added bonus, isn't it? Well, thanks so much, mate, for sharing all that with us. I know we had a few Skype issues there, but I think we navigated our way through those perfectly, and people still got to hear the meat. How do people find out more?
Well, you can check out my website, which is just my name, GregoryDiehl.net. Diehl is spelled Diehl. I have a podcast on there. It's called Uncomfortable Conversations with Gregory. You can check out my book, Brand Identity Breakthrough, which is available on Amazon.com in print or audio or ebook. And I have a few other books I'm working on too. I'm actually helping quite a few people produce books now that I've realized this whole self-publishing a book thing is quite impressive. You know, it's a whole new market frontier that hasn't existed until recently.
Yeah, and I think it's you're seeing a lot more people being able to share their knowledge with the world through self-publishing, and that's the next. I think it's like the Uber of the publishing game, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the next 10 years, you know, this is going to be a major new outlet. And I can certainly tell you, having written 2 books now, the reputational boost is astounding. Like just being able to show people, hey, I wrote this book. It looks professionally published. You know, images, a lot of it. And my books are actually selling pretty well, so I'm making a decent amount of money from that too. But just the reputation boost is incredible because most people still don't know that this avenue exists or how to use it properly.
Great stuff. So go and grab yourself the book, Brand Identity Breakthrough. It is an Amazon bestseller. You can get it there, audio, ebook, or virtual book. Go Amazon.com, look for Brand Identity Breakthrough. Or you can, of course, go to brandidentitybreakthrough.com. I can see that you can grab the book through there, plus a little free 10 reports, 10 mistakes that business owners are making report as well on that website. So once again, Gregory, thanks so much for coming to share. I think it's so important that business owners get clear on how to communicate their uniqueness to the marketplace. It's so important.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. The world needs better communication.
Absolutely. Now, all we've got left to do, my friend, is the 60-second scramble. Are you ready for that?
I hope so.
All right, let's start the clock. What's your favorite drink?
I'm going to say kombucha.
Kombucha? What's kombucha?
Oh, I guess you don't have that where you are. It's a California kind of drink. It's like a fermented tea. It's supposed to be really good for you.
Oh, okay, cool. We might have to get that down under. Best way to tune out and relax?
Read a book, listen to classical music. I'm old-fashioned like that, like an old man trapped in a young man's body.
That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Do you have a hidden talent?
Hidden? No, because every talent I have, I share with the world. I shout it from the rooftops. I'm a bit narcissistic like that. So no,
nothing hidden. Fair enough. What's your biggest addiction?
I'm going to say dark chocolate. That was quite appropriate for the example I gave earlier. I am hugely addicted to dark chocolate and cats.
I was about to say, you mentioned the chocolate before and cats as well. Number one tip for being more efficient?
Cut out the people in your life who just serve to take up time, which for me is most people. 99% of people are just distractions and take up time. But there are a few that are just, prime grade human beings that are functionally wonderful to have around.
Awesome stuff. And once again, mate, thanks so much for sharing. All those links will be in the show notes. So if you wanted to get a copy of the show notes and access to those links, just go to businessbrainfood.com/120. This is Business Brain Food 120. Once again, Gregory, thanks for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks so much.
Learn more to earn more.
Well, what a fantastic episode. I know we had those Skype issues, and I really do appreciate you sticking through those, because I know that can be tough listening. It's tough for me as the interviewer to be able to sit here and listen to the cutting in and cutting out the Darth Vader voices. We actually had about 5 or 6 dropouts, which our team has cleverly edited out. But at the end of the day, the value was in the content, and the content was there. If you want to find out more, go to brandidentitybreakthrough.com and download he's got a free report there with the 10 mistakes that business owners everywhere make when trying to position themselves in the marketplace. Head to Amazon.com and just buy his book. It's called Brand Identity Breakthrough, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. He's got a few other books as well, but I think Brand Identity Breakthrough is the book to start with if you really want to position yourself in the marketplace in a different way. Alrighty, well, second episode of the year, episode 120, plenty to get on with. Once again, thanks for tuning into the Business Brain Food podcast. Just a reminder, head across to facebook.com/groups/business brain food, business brain food, talking faster than my tongue. My brain's going faster than my tongue. Head over to facebook.com/business brain food. Or the groups/business brain food. Find us on Facebook. Join the conversation. We're over there having a good old chat about things business, and you're missing out. So join the group. Come and join us. Ask a question and get involved. Alrighty. Once again, thanks for tuning in. That's pretty much it for this week's podcast episode. Looking forward to talking to you again next week. Until then, have a profitable day.
You can fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can have all you ever wanted.
Head to MaxMyProfit.com.au for more information, free downloads, and to check out our business growth events. That's MaxMyProfit.com.au.